Have you ever felt like you were too much, but in a way you could never quite explain? You walk into a room, and suddenly the vibe shifts. Conversations dim, glances brush past you, then dart away. You try to be friendly, gentle, patient, and yet something about you seems to unsettle the world around you. It's not what you say. It's not how you behave. It's something deeper, something felt. And even if no one can name it, your soul has known it all along. You're vibrating at a frequency that just doesn't fit into a world where many are still asleep. Carl Jung taught that as we begin the process of individuation, becoming our true selves, we step out of the collective patterns of the unconscious. And in doing so, we disturb what is familiar, predictable, and socially accepted. Not through aggression, but through our mere presence. The more you connect with your truth, the more incompatible you become with untruth. The more you purify your energy, the more others feel exposed in their own. This is why people pull back. This is why they call you too intense, too sensitive, too much, because your vibration reveals. And revelation is uncomfortable for those who are still hiding themselves. This video is for those who feel it, who have tried to make themselves smaller, softer, less noticeable, but couldn't. Because when your frequency rises, your soul refuses to stay quiet. Today, we are going to explore 13 signs that you are vibrating on a level most people aren't really ready for, and why this isn't something you need to fix, but something you finally get to understand. Stay with me until the end, because the reason you've always felt like an outsider might just be proof that you've already awakened. You feel everything more intensely, and that makes others nervous. You were never just emotional. You were aware. You sensed energies before words were spoken, perceived shifts in a room before they became visible. You've always felt the tension behind a smile, recognized sadness in eyes, heard dishonesty in tone. And that's precisely why many didn't know how to handle you. Jung believed that those on the path of individuation connect with their deep, intuitive nature, a part of the self that can see through superficiality. When this happens, emotional depth is no longer a weakness. It becomes a language, and you've always spoken it. But for people disconnected from their feelings, your sensitivity is confronting. Your depth touches places within them that they long ago silenced. Through your mere presence, you remind them of what they've suppressed, forgotten, or numbed. They might say you think too much, are too sensitive, feel too strongly. But the truth is, you feel exactly what is, and this accuracy, this raw, unfiltered presence, shakes them. You're not broken, you're just awake, and awakening doesn't make you fragile. It makes you aware. So, when people recoil from your intensity, remember, they aren't running from you. They're fleeing from the part of themselves you've inadvertently brought back to the surface. You can no longer tolerate superficial conversations, and your silence speaks volumes. You used to engage in small talk, nodding, smiling, laughing at things that didn't resonate simply because everyone else did. But now, something within you rebels. The words feel empty. The performance exhausts you. The longer you stay in a space devoid of truth, the more your energy aches. You don't crave attention, you crave authenticity. Carl Jung believed that when the true self emerges, the personality reorganizes around depth, not surface. And when you live from this depth, conversations that avoid truth feel like static to your soul. You try to stay present, but your body knows better. Your energy recedes. Your eyes search for substance. You are no longer available for what doesn't nourish your spirit. And people sense this, even if they can't explain it. They realize they can no longer keep you in their game, that your silence in the midst of superficial chatter says more than 1,000 words. Some might consider you cold, distant, arrogant, but you're not. You're just no longer willing to sacrifice your integrity for appearance. And yes, this can unsettle others, because your refusal to play silently questions their habit of doing just that. You're not here to fill rooms with noise. You're here to bring presence to every word, or none at all. Your intuition speaks louder than any logic, and that threatens those who need control. There's something inside you that just knows. You sense when something is off, even before it becomes visible. You feel the truth behind a smile, the unease beneath apparent agreement, the unspoken shift in a person's energy. And most often, you're right, even if you can't explain how. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious holds an ancient wisdom far beyond what the mind can grasp. He taught that people connected to themselves begin to trust this inner compass, the voice beneath the voice. That's your intuition. But intuition unsettles people who rely on control, because it cannot be predicted. It can't be measured, debated, or dominated. And when you trust what you feel more than what they say, you dismantle the construct on which they've built their self-image. People who live by strategy feel exposed next to you because you don't need proof to sense truth. You don't need logic to move. You don't need permission to feel what's real. This clarity is frightening for those who keep themselves afloat by manipulating narratives. It disarms those who define themselves by playing hide-and-seek. And sometimes they call you irrational, dramatic. They demand proof for what you feel, but you owe no one proof. You owe yourself only one thing: to remain in your truth. Because when your soul speaks, it does so with a wisdom no argument can withstand. You see truths others suppress, and that's what makes you disruptive. You've always seen things others overlook, or worse, intentionally ignore. The elephant in the room, the unspoken tension between two people, the quiet sadness in someone who says everything is fine. You don't force these perceptions. They simply happen, as if your eyes were made to see through the veil. Carl Jung wrote that truth doesn't just reside in facts, but also in symbols, dreams, energies, in all the layers we refuse to articulate. And the more in tune you are with your inner self, the clearer you recognize what others deny. But not everyone wants to see what you see. Some are too entangled in their illusions, in their idea of peace based on avoidance, in their concept of love based on role-playing and masquerade, in their feeling of control stemming from suppression. When you speak, it moves something. When you are silent, it confronts. Your mere presence is a silent invitation to drop the facade, and that makes people profoundly uneasy. They call you difficult, too serious, too intense. But in reality, you're simply refusing to participate in a play that keeps others asleep. You're not here to maintain illusions. You're here to hold space for what's real. And yes, this will always be perceived as disruptive by those still hiding behind the lie. Your presence demands authenticity, and masks fall beside you. You don't ask anyone to be honest, and yet, suddenly they are. They stumble over their rehearsed sentences. They hesitate before answering. They avoid your gaze, because something in your energy tolerates no pretense. Carl Jung taught that we all wear a persona, a mask we show the world to meet its expectations. But when the true self awakens, we stop nourishing this mask. We dissolve it. And those who still live behind their masks feel this change when they encounter you. You carry the frequency of truth, authenticity, wholeness, and this frequency doesn't allow deception to persist. People often subconsciously sense that they cannot pretend around you. So they drop the mask, or they leave. Not because you judge, not because you expose, but because your energy does something far more powerful. It invites authenticity. And for many, that is frightening, because to be authentic, they would have to face what their mask has hidden for so long. That's why some people only stay near you briefly, because even in silence, you ask the one question they never wanted to ask themselves. Are you honest with yourself? And in that space, truth either becomes appealing or unbearable. You disrupt unconscious patterns simply by existing. Some people only realize how stuck they are when you enter their lives. Your mere presence begins to disturb what was once automatic. They cannot manipulate you like others. They cannot pull you into their drama, their silence, their old cycles. Carl Jung described how we repeat unconscious scripts. inherited beliefs, unresolved traumas, emotional reflexes, until something breaks us out of that cycle. And sometimes, that something isn't an event, but a person. You are that interruption. You don't play the expected role. You don't react predictably. You don't mirror dysfunction. You mirror truth. And that alone causes the old dance to collapse. Others feel frustrated, exposed, powerless by this. Not because you've taken power from them, but because you've refused to participate in the game. Your refusal to repeat their pattern becomes the beginning of their awakening or the reason they leave. That's why you often trigger people unintentionally. That's why they attack you, suddenly disappear, or call you difficult. You are not difficult. You are different. And by being different, you activate the possibility of change. But change begins with discomfort, and not everyone is ready for what your energy quietly dissolves. You are not here to conform. You are here to shift something. Superficial relationships exhaust you, and others take it personally. You used to try, nodding, smiling, showing up, making an effort, even if the connection felt empty. But now, you can't anymore. The attempt to maintain a relationship without depth feels like dragging your soul through sand, even if the other person means well, even if they've done nothing wrong. Carl Jung spoke of inner transformation as a process of shedding. The more in tune you are with yourself, the less you tolerate what doesn't resonate. And superficial relationships, however polite, begin to feel like noise, weight, friction. You don't hate these people. You just feel empty in their presence because your soul no longer feeds on shallow bonds. It yearns for truth, authenticity, depth. But others rarely see it this way. They feel rejected. They consider you distant, arrogant, or cold. They say you've changed. And they're right. You have changed. Because once you've tasted inner alignment, you can no longer pretend small talk is meaningful. Once your soul has spoken, you can no longer repeat old emotional scripts just to appear normal. This is the price of your inner elevation. Fewer connections, but deeper ones, and a growing silence from those who only knew your surface. Let them misunderstand you. Let them go. You're not withdrawing. You're protecting your energy. You're preserving space for what's real. You activate the shadows of others, even if you don't intend to. You don't provoke. You don't attack. You are simply honest, open, present. Yet, people around you suddenly behave strangely. Irritation, projections, withdrawal. At first, it makes no sense, but deep within, you understand. Your presence didn't hurt them. It exposed them. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the repressed, hidden part of the psyche that we deny in ourselves but unconsciously fight in others. And you, simply by your wholeness, become a mirror to what others are not yet willing to look at. You walk in truth, and they feel their lies. You move in freedom, and they feel their prisons. You speak with presence, and their affected words lose their sound. It's not your fault, but it is your influence. People who have numbed their feelings for years often cannot explain why your energy makes them so uneasy, exposed, or insecure. But the reaction remains. You didn't cause their wound. You brought light into the room where it was hidden. Some will thank you for this. They begin to heal. Others will flee, reject you, or resent you. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your light touched a part of them they never wanted to see. You remind them of what they wanted to forget. And that is the quiet power of living in your full frequency. Your energy rejects what your soul no longer accepts. There was a time when you tolerated more than you should have. You smiled through discomfort. You stayed in places that drained you. You said yes, even though your soul whispered no. But that's over now. Before your mind can even justify something, your body recoils. Your intuition tightens. Your energy rejects. Carl Jung spoke of the deep alignment that occurs when the ego submits to the self, a return to inner coherence. And when this happens, your vibration begins to filter reality for you. It repels everything your soul has outgrown. You notice it subtly. Some conversations are barely tolerable. Some environments feel suffocating. Your heart closes before your mind even grasps why. It's not rudeness, it's resonance. You are no longer available for what no longer aligns with your truth. And even if this confuses others, it frees you. You don't have to explain why some things no longer fit, why certain people no longer feel safe, or why you left places that once felt like home. Your energy knows already, and it does the work that words cannot. This is not rejection, it is protection. You are not cold, you are clear. And clarity in a world addicted to compromise feels like rebellion. But this rebellion is sacred, because it's not about pushing others away. It's about finally choosing what aligns with the soul you've become. You are a mirror, and not everyone can withstand what you reflect. You've noticed how people change when they're near you. Some open up, some withdraw, some don't even know why they feel uneasy in your presence. It's not about what you say, it's about what you reflect. Carl Jung taught that the psyche projects onto others what it cannot yet integrate itself. And when someone stands before a mirror as clear as you, these hidden parts rise to the surface. You don't just reflect smiles, you also reflect inner conflicts, doubts, longing, precisely those parts they've suppressed. Your mere presence becomes a silent confrontation. Here you are, without a mask, and for many, that is almost unbearable. They might blame you for their feelings, avoid you, mock you, or call you too intense. But deep down they are not reacting to you, but to their own image, which they see unfiltered in your presence. You didn't create their discomfort, you made it visible. And through this revelation, some will awaken, others will leave. Both are valid, both are reactions to truth. Because you, in your alignment, can no longer dim your vibration just to protect others from what they are not yet willing to see. You are not a threat, you are a mirror, and what others do with that reflection is not your burden. You attract deep connections or sudden rejection, but never indifference. You've surely noticed it. When people get close to you, they rarely remain neutral. Either they are deeply drawn to you, as if they've known you for ages, or they pull away, sometimes without a word, as if your presence overwhelmed them. Carl Jung explained that when one lives from the self, the true and integrated self, one's energy carries a psychological weight. It becomes magnetic for those seeking truth and too heavy for those still clinging to illusions. You don't demand intensity. You are intensity, not through loudness or drama, but through depth. People sense your sincerity, your stillness, your unspoken clarity, and they react to it. For some, it's a homecoming. For others, a jolt. That's why your relationships are rarely lukewarm. They don't fade. They ignite or they shatter, because your energy tolerates no half-truths or half-hearted affection. You will either be met in depth or left in silence. But this is not rejection. It is a vibrational sorting. You no longer attract people through external facades. You attract them through resonance. And resonance knows no indifference. It moves, it shakes, it awakens. So, when people come close to you and either settle into their soul or disappear in fear, don't take it personally. It's not about how lovable you are. It's about how real you've become. Your silence says more than their words, and that's precisely what unnerves them. You don't have to speak loudly to be heard. You don't have to argue to make a point. Sometimes your silence alone shifts the atmosphere more powerfully than any speech could. Carl Jung wrote that the unconscious often speaks through symbols, through stillness, and through mere presence. And when someone is deeply aligned with their self, even their silence becomes a message. That is you. You don't interrupt, you don't dominate, you simply are. And this mere being becomes a vibration that others feel, even if they can't name it. In your silence, others hear themselves, and for some, that is disturbing. They begin to talk more, to explain themselves, to justify, not because you judge them, but because your quiet presence makes them aware of their own noise. Your tranquility carries a kind of truth within it, one that doesn't demand attention, but dissolves illusions. You've surely noticed how uneasy some people become in your presence when there is nothing to say, because your silence reflects their discomfort, their suppression, their inner absence. You don't speak, and yet they feel seen. You don't confront, and yet they feel exposed, because your silence isn't empty. It's full of energy, clarity, and awareness. And for many, that is more than they can bear. You awaken those who are ready and repel those who are not. You don't try to be a teacher. You don't preach. You are simply completely honest without making yourself small. And yet, your presence has an impact. Some people begin to change after encountering you. They can no longer think, feel, or act as before, not because you taught them something, but because your energy reminded them of something they had forgotten, their own light. Carl Jung said that awakening doesn't mean becoming something new, but remembering what was buried deep within us. And your vibration, when in alignment, becomes a mirror of this remembrance. You don't have to say a word. You don't have to explain anything. You are the catalyst, gentle yet powerful. For some, your energy feels like truth, like medicine, like a home. For others, it feels like a confrontation, like pressure, like too much. They call you intense, too spiritual, too detached. But what they're really saying is, I'm not yet ready for what you remind me of. This isn't judgment, it's resonance, because energy never lies, and your energy isn't here to please, but to awaken. Let those who are ready come to you, and let go of the others without resentment. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to activate those who were meant to find you anyway. And now you recognize it, how people have reacted, the silence after your truth, the connections your presence couldn't hold, the glances that made you feel like an anomaly. It was never about you being wrong. It was always about you being real. Carl Jung said that when we begin to live from the self, from the true and integrated self, we stop fitting into spaces built on facade. Your vibration has changed, and the world around you has reacted to it. Not because you became someone else, but because you returned to who you always were. People came close to you and pulled away. Some couldn't breathe in your field of truth. Some stayed and awakened by your side. Others never truly saw you. But through it all, you kept going. You kept aligning, and with each step, your frequency grew louder than your voice, clearer than any explanation. You no longer have to defend your sensitivity. You no longer have to apologize for your silence. You no longer have to make yourself small to avoid disturbing others. You are not misunderstood because you are broken, but because you vibrate above the narrative. And those who cannot reach you there are not your fault. They are simply not your mirror. But those who feel you, who soften when you speak, who breathe deeper in your presence, that is your circle, and they will find you through resonance, not through pretense, through energy, not through effort. If this message has resonated with something inside you, something you've always felt but never put into words, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's make our quiet sign. My frequency speaks what I no longer need to explain. Let that be our silent signal for those walking the invisible path, who vibrate in truth, who no longer wait to be understood to be what they already are.